Good morning. I'm Stephanie Shine of Tennessee Shakespeare Company, and welcome back to the Decameron Project. Today's date, April 21st, 2020. Today's theme, Truth. On this day in history, Irish playwright George Bernard Shaw, or GBS as he preferred to be known as, had a premiere in London of his play Arms and the Man, and it was a commercial success, which is important because this meant that GBS continued to write. And he will write in 1914 a play called Pygmalion. And Pygmalion will deliver into the collective consciousness two endearing and enduring characters, Henry Higgins and Eliza Doolittle. Now, in this play, it was not a romantic comedy. Instead, George Bernard Shaw was working towards getting women the vote and women's independence, because when this play was first produced, women still couldn't vote in England. He also was interested in abolishing the class society, and he wanted to prove with this play that language is what stopped people from being able to be all of the same class, but that it was not to the manner born. Instead, one could learn language. And that's what happens in Pygmalion. Now, imagine the shock that poor GBS had when this first play was produced, and he was sitting in the audience opening night. He watched the end of the play. And the end of the play, as he wrote it, this is what happens. After a very spirited debate, Eliza decides to strike out on her own. She says to Higgins, if I can't have kindness, I'll have independence. And then, according to the final stage direction, Eliza sweeps out. And that's the end of the play. Now, granted, it's ambiguous. That's what was the intent. But the actor playing Higgins on opening night with Shaw in the audience, when Eliza sweeps out, he adds an unscripted moment. He doesn't add text, but he looks lovingly and longingly after her. And the audience knows by that movement that Higgins has always been in love with her and that one day they will see each other again and perhaps get married and have a wonderful future together. Well, Shaw hated this, but there was nothing he could do about it. And by the 100th performance, this same actor was now throwing flowers after Eliza. No, instead, what Shaw said was to happen is that Eliza, who could not stay in the Higgins home, she couldn't go back to the streets selling flowers. Instead, she opened a flower shop and was successful. And she married a very nice fellow, and they had a few problems, but they worked it out, and they made a good go of it. And he said that Eliza would often visit Higgins from time to time and speak with him, but never, ever was she in love with him. Can you imagine how he felt about My Fair Lady, which was only done after Shaw's death because he refused to give any rights for it to be done? When the end of My Fair Lady reads this, there are tears in Eliza's eyes. She understands. And that's how that became a musical, comedy, romantic story. Poor Shaw. In 1938, he also did the screenplay for an adaptation of his play Pygmalion. The producer, without Shaw's knowledge, filmed an alternate happy ending. Poor GBS won an Oscar for a screenplay for a movie he hated. But now you know the truth about Pygmalion. Also on this date, in 1816, Charlotte Bronte was born. On the last day of February in 1839, 28-year-old Charlotte receives an offer of marriage from a lovely young man named Henry Nessy. She spent 6 days and wrote him a letter back on March the 5th of 1839, and it is nothing short of brilliant. It is an assertive, yet generous, unambiguous, yet kind masterwork of the it's not you, it's me model. Let's listen to her share her truth to this young suitor. My dear sir, before answering your letter, I might have spent a long time in consideration of its subject, but as from the first moment of its reception and perusal, I determined on which course to pursue. It seemed to me that delay was wholly unnecessary. You are aware that I have many reasons to feel gratified to your family, that I have particular reasons for affection towards one at least of your sisters, and also that I highly esteem yourself. Do not therefore accuse me of wrong motives when I say that my answer to your proposal must be a decided negative. In forming this decision, I trust I have listened to the dictates of conscience more than to those of inclination. I have no personal repugnance to the idea of a union with you, but I feel convinced that mine is not the sort of disposition calculated to form the happiness of a man like you. It has always been my habit to study the character of those amongst whom I chance to be thrown, and I think I know yours, and can imagine what description of woman would suit you for a wife. Her character should not be too marked, ardent and original. Her temper should be mild, her piety undoubted, her spirits even and cheerful, and her personal attractions sufficient to please your eye and gratify your just pride. As for me, you do not know me. I am not this serious, grave, cool-headed individual you suppose. You would think me romantic and eccentric. You would say I was satirical and severe. However, I scorn deceit, and I will never be, for the sake of attaining the distinction of matrimony and escaping the stigma of an old maid, take a worthy man whom I am conscious I cannot render happy. Farewell. I shall always be glad to hear from you as a friend. Believe me, yours truly, C. Bronte. Now imagine another type of truth in a proposal. Here we have Shakespeare writing with Richard III. Richard has just spoken to Queen Elizabeth and told her he would like to now marry her daughter, his niece. This is after he's already killed her brothers and Queen Elizabeth's brothers and his own brother, as a matter of fact. He's killed everybody who's told him the truth. Finally, Queen Elizabeth speaks truth to him. What were I best to say? Her father's brother would be her lord, or shall I say her uncle, or he that slew her brothers and her uncle? Under what title can I woo for thee that God, the law, my honor, and her love can make seem pleasing to her tender years? How canst thou woo her? And wilt thou learn of me? Send to her by the man that slew her brothers a pair of bleeding hearts, thereon engrave Edward and York. Then haply she will weep. Therefore present to her, as sometime Margaret did to thy father, steeped in Rutland's blood, a handkerchief. And therein say to her that it did drain the purple sap from her sweet brother's body, and bid her dry her weeping eyes therewith. If this inducement move her not to love, send her a letter of thy noble deeds. Tell her thou madest away with her uncle Clarence, her uncle Rivers, yea, and for her sake madest quick conveyance with her good Aunt Anne. There is no other way, unless thou could take some other shape, and be not Richard that hath done all this. Elizabeth may be the only one to escape Richard's wrath. She lives, even though she speaks her truth. And in leaving, we'll go back to our birthday girl, Charlotte Bronte, on this anniversary of her lovely birth. She writes, I am no bird, no net ensnares me. I am a free human being with an independent will, which I now exert to leave you. And now I will exert and leave you as well. I wish you a happy day. Give a virtual hug to everybody you love today, and I look forward to the next time. Goodbye.